Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television talk show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon with my wonderful guest who ride along for the occasion as well. You can find us on television. We are syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. You can find us on WZLA. This is the country powerhouse station in South Carolina. So we're with them every Saturday, and that's at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we appreciate your listening to us any way you possibly can. All the social media sites, we're still doing that as well. You can also find us on, by the way, continue sending email. They really make my day. Donna at donnasedge.com. That's Donna at donnasedge.com. I have a good friend with me right now. His name is Alan Mendenhall. Known Alan for many, many years, and appreciate everything you do for the community and for the world, keeping us up to date. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Donna. How are you? It's good to be on your show again.
Well, always. Now, you are in D.C. right now, is that correct?
That's correct. I am actually at the office in Washington, D.C. at the Heritage Foundation building. I'm here about a week a month, and it just so happened that we scheduled this session here while I'm here, which is great. I get to be in studio.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Love the background.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it does everything.
Actually, Glenn Beck is right next door to me right now in the studio next door. So what a cool
Let's go
thing.
crash him. Do you think he would mind?
Yeah, you want to trade places?
No, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to him too, but I want to talk to you. So Heritage Foundation, we've received some email about you. I had you on the Saturday morning show on WZLA Powerhouse. And a lot of folks have responded with email. They would like to know more about the Heritage Foundation and what it does.
Oh, well, the Heritage Foundation is probably the premier conservative think tank in Washington, D.C., and it works in public policy and outreach and coheres the conservative movement. It's been around for a long time. Our longtime president, Ed Fulner, passed away this past summer. Kevin Roberts is our current president. He's doing an outstanding job. He's been president for about 4 years. And we have, the Heritage Foundation is a 501c3, but there's also a C4 called Heritage Action that does policy and lobbying. So it's a tremendous organization. We produce policy papers and research. We do television and media hits, dozens every day. And we are just kind of the premier source for conservative information and research and data.
How would you describe what a conservative person is?
Well, I always go to Russell Kirk's sort of tenets of conservatism, and he's got, I think 10 are roughly he's got different counts, but 10 is the one that I always go to. And he talks about, I can't just sit here and list them all to you right now, but people that adhere to traditional faith and have traditional values, but also people that advance civil society in constructive and peaceful ways.
I look for people who are conservative to do business with. In other words, the person who actually handles our books and taxes. I would like for that person to be a conservative person because I am. And I feel like they're looking out for me and for my business a little more so than maybe someone who wasn't a conservative. Are there conservatives? I know most Republicans are, but are there also conservatives outside of the realm of a Republican?
Oh, sure. I think political parties tend to drift one way or another over decades and over centuries. And, the nature of conservatism is not that it's unchanging, but that it's slowly changing, that it evolves gradually and by slow degrees. And that makes sure that, the benefits of certain ideas are retained, and that we don't too quickly eliminate ideas from conversation or consideration because of fashionable trends. And so conservatism is basically what philosophical framework has staying power, what foundations have proven workable over the course of centuries. And in our particular moment, I think we're in a period of restoration in which we are going back and we're grabbing what has worked from the past and recovering it after decades of destruction and devastation and elimination. Now we're finding what worked and what was good, true, and beautiful from the past, and we're recovering it for a new generation of Americans. And it's an exciting time to be an American. We're in a pivotal moment.
I think so too, and also some of us, as we evolve and grow a little older, we don't make fun of our grandparents near as often as we used to, because my grandparents, even though one set of grandparents were Republicans, the other set were Democrats, there was still this conservatism in the way they did things and the way they thought and the way they carried out their everyday life in business and at home.
Yesterday I had lunch with a minister in the Japanese embassy here in DC. I used to live in Japan in 2005 and 2006, and then again in 2008. So I have these Japanese ties. And he and I were having this conversation about the compatibility between the conservatism of the American South and the conservatism of Japanese culture. And during that discussion, we pointed to things like reverence for your elders, respect for your elders, and the fact that in the South, people wave and say hi, whereas in Japan you might acknowledge somebody not necessarily by waving or saying hi, but by a polite bow, and how in general there are similarities with table manners and etiquette and decorum. And it's sort of a fascinating parallel between Japanese conservatism and conservatism in the American South. I actually wrote an essay about this, I think last year, in the journal Modern Age, published by the Intercollegiate Studies Institute. My friend Dan McCarthy is the editor there, and he asked me to write this piece because he had heard me on a panel talking about this very thing, and he said, "Would you write about that?" And I said, "Sure, I would." And he published it, and that led to meeting another Japanese academic who asked me if I could write something for a Japanese publication, and I don't have that type of facility with Japanese. And so I wrote it in English, and he translated it in Japanese, and it got published in Japanese. And that was fun to see my face with all these kanji and hiragana, katakana all over the newspaper or the magazine or whatever it was. So that was an honor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now you just came back from an awesome trip. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I just got back from Morocco. I was there for a week for the meeting of the Mont Pelerin Society. And Morocco is a fascinating place. It is a constitutional monarchy. It has an elected parliament. It's had the same king since 1999. But unlike most Islamic countries, or many Islamic countries perhaps, it has a pretty liberal economy. It's been the United States trading partner pretty much since our inception. It was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent sovereign after the Revolutionary War. And we've had amicable ties with Morocco ever since. We've got similar governmental structures in parliament, I guess, in our legislature, in the sense that, we have a House and a Senate. They have a House of Representatives and a House of Councilors. But we trade well with them. We've got pretty free trade with Morocco. Their economy depends a lot on manufacturing and agriculture, and I think we do most of our trade in the agriculture space. The one thing about Morocco that is sort of a natural disadvantage is that it's a desert community. So if there is no rain, if we've got a drought, then Morocco is going to have a tough time with growth that particular season or that particular year, and that can be an issue. But we've had diplomatic relations with Morocco since 1786, and I think this is why the Mont Pelerin Society, which is an organization of mostly economists, but people who work in politics or political theory or international relations are also involved. But I think the Mont Pelerin Society chose Morocco because of its special approach to economic policy for an Islamic country. And it is a very open market and does business very well. It discourages Islamic extremism. It is very open to tourists. It's a very safe place. It's more tolerant. Tourism is vibrant. A lot of French women walk around in the type of clothing that you would think French women would walk around in France. This is not a place where all the women are completely covered up. French is probably the language you hear the most when you're walking around the streets, but civil society is pretty active there. It's mostly a Sufi influenced version of Islam. And I found everybody there to be sort of polite and kind and hospitable, and had a great time. I thought Morocco was a very fascinating place, and I learned a lot about our history and our ties with Morocco.
Mm-hmm. As a presidential parliament, are they a little more in line with the United States as a president, comparing to the president of the United States role? Is a little bit more like a president of the United States, or a little more like England?
Well, it's actually it's definitely not like the president of the United States. So the head of state is the king, as I mentioned. It's King Mohammed. He's been king since 1999, and he actually has significant executive authority, and much more so than their prime minister. Their prime minister has been in office since 2021. And he leads a cabinet and oversees domestic policy, but at the end of the day has less power than the king. And it was interesting. One of the panels that we listened to, and they're Chatham House rules, so we're not actually supposed to say who said what and to talk about what was discussed. But I'll just say that one panelist gave a very interesting discussion about how democracy in the Middle East is a very difficult thing to institute, because naturally the people want to vote in authoritarianism. They want a very strong dictatorial leader. And so if you give people pure democracy, they will vote that in, and they will undo democracy. So that, and essentially the democratic impulse is to undo democracy in many Islamic countries. And I thought that was a fascinating point.
I do too, and especially in the way that the king is not someone necessarily that has the bloodline, such
Right.
as in England, where that's the bloodline.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating, but I can also see why that would be sort of dangerous. I'd never really thought about, well, why would a hereditary monarchy be beneficial? It seems to be, if you're even in a system, a monarchical system, or even imagining Europe from centuries ago when we had monarchs, why would people choose hereditary monarchs and not monarchs by some other way? Well, it turns out because that eliminates a lot of the political factions and violence that occurs when people make plays for power. When you know basically who's going to be the successor, and that's obvious and that's established, then you don't have so much fighting over that. Although we obviously historically had quite a bit of bloodshed over monarchical systems, but I can understand why that makes sense historically, why people might have gravitated toward that hereditary line rather than some other form, just because of the political whirlwinds that would swirl around such a succession.
Well, I will say this, the next person in line to be king in England, I feel much more confident in him than I would.
Oh, after Charles. Yeah, sure.
Just a little more.
Yeah. It's that's much more of a figurehead role than what Morocco has, but Morocco is doing pretty well, all things considered, for the Middle East. It's it's in Northern Africa, but it's an principally Islamic country, so it's easy for me to just lump it in with the Middle East, but it's actually in North Africa.
But they seem to have more, not an appreciation for Christians, but they seem to be tolerant. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
They're very tolerant toward Christians. In fact, there was when I went through the marketplace, I saw a synagogue and saw a Jewish community behind all these markets. And that was fascinating to see in an Islamic country. Now, Morocco once had a thriving and large Jewish population and no longer has a very large Jewish population. But the Jewish population, which is there, does not feel sort of, I would say, constantly under threat. But I do think many many of the Jewish communities migrated to Israel after the creation of the state of Israel, and also to the United States as well.
How do you feel they think of women in a role of authority?
They're not quite they're not quite Western. We'll put it that way. It's not going to be what you'd see in the United States or in, Europe, but compared to other Islamic countries, you're much more likely to see women playing important roles. In fact, in the palace in which I stayed, it was literally called a palace, but for me, functionally, it was a hotel, but aesthetically, it was definitely a palace. But there were many women who are working there, barking orders at all the men. And so, it's not off the table to see that type of dynamic.
Maybe they're not ready for it yet. Possibly in a couple of decades, you would see
Possibly
something.
so. We'll see. It's hard to say. I was there as an observer for a week, and so I have just minimal experience, and it's all anecdotal. But from what I saw, it was fascinating. It's a country that I can see why we maintain diplomatic ties for so long, and why the United States has gotten along with Morocco for so long.
Were you surprised that any
Just
of the?
be careful flying in. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, flying in. Flying in. My luggage arrived the day after I did, and that was Air France's fault. That was the French.
I would be going to pieces had that been
Just
mine. Women have makeup and stuff like that, so.
Well, yeah, the French women who walked around were not dressed the way I would expect people to be dressed in Islamic country. They were wearing quite revealing clothing. You could see all their belly buttons with their belly button piercings, and they were they were where it was very French. A lot of the French women were making sure everyone knew that the French women were present.
Well, you may have just answered my next question. My question was going to be, is there anything that really surprised you about any of the customs in Morocco?
Well, I mean, there were things that were surprising. There were things that were not surprising. I mean, I was expecting, a little more, I guess, not formality, but rigidity, I think, when it comes to things like dress. And I certainly was expecting to have to be on my toes and very careful all the time. But it was very relaxed. And I think it was very Western. It was very Western seeming in a lot of ways. And so that was, I guess, a little more unexpected. I, in some ways, felt safer walking the streets of Marrakesh than I have walking around Chicago.
I totally get that. So, I mean, it's
that may be more of a commentary on Chicago than Morocco.
It could be if you feel safer there. So we went to South Uganda, Africa, and again, you need to be ahead of the customs before you get there, and that really applies to how you dress. And so we were told before we got there, in this particular part of South Uganda, the women should not wear pants, and you should not wear a dress above the knee. And because in their custom, if a woman wears pants or if they wear a dress above their knee, she's a prostitute. So you can wear jeans. So, I mean, you had to wear a dress every single day, and it needed to be below the knee. And of course, we abided by that.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that type of rule obtains for at least Western women coming in as tourists. They're obviously practicing Islamic women have their own standards and codes of conduct which are religiously observed. But for tourists coming in, I mean, I think their economy is so heavily dependent on tourism, and they recognize that they are fairly tolerant of sort of Western customs and standards and conventions. So that was interesting. Now, the one thing about customs, you mentioned customs, is my interrogation at customs was probably the longest I've ever had in a country. And it started off with, what's your ring? Same ring I'm wearing now, this ring right here. What's your ring? And I said, it's my college ring. And they said, let me see it. So I took it off and handed it to him, and I was afraid I wasn't going to get it back. But he looked at it and flipped it around and gave it back. And he said, what college? And I said, oh, well, I went to Furman University. Where's that? It's in Greenville, South Carolina. And it just went on from there. Where do you work? Well, I work for the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. Write that down on this piece of paper for me. So he writes it down, and he gets out his phone and he Googles it. And he asked me, what does the Heritage Foundation do? And I had to explain that. And then he asked me what I was there for. And I said, I'm here for the Mont Pelerin Society meeting. What's that? I had to explain that. Then he asked me for a program, a conference program, which I didn't have on me in paper, but I had the app because we had a conference app. So I opened the app and handed him my phone, and he started scrolling through all the different pages of the app and taking photos of it. I was like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to be here? I didn't get pulled off into a separate room or anything, but I did get interrogated for about 20 minutes. And I've never had that happen at customs before. So I don't know. Maybe I look very scary.
Yeah, maybe you did. There's something about you when you travel. So
well, that might be it.
Maybe they're a bit more conservative about who comes into the country than the United States is.
I think a lot of countries are. What's so funny is we have so many people on the left here in the United States who decry our immigration policy and want it to be more lenient. And they act as though Europe is the gold standard for politics and we ought to be more like European countries. And then you just try to get into European countries and it's harder than it is to get into ours in many ways. And unfortunately, Europe has had a very big problem with Islamic immigration and from particular Islamic cultures that will not assimilate and are committed to undermining European values and cultures. And I think this is just one factor in the broader movement in Europe to embrace something like their version of MAGA. We've got our Make America Great Again. You've got sort of a French version going on and an Italian version going on and a German version going on. And I think you're seeing a rise of a different type of nationalism. I hesitate to use the word nationalism because the Latin root means one thing, but you're seeing a pride of place and a pride of country and the idea that borders matter and that culture and customs and conventions matter, that there are places that are distinct and that their distinctiveness is important.
Well, you know something, their faith, I would like to say you have kind of conservatives like, and then you have the people who are just like in the Christian religion. You have two different kinds, seems like, types of Christians. And I'm saying that because I used to own a business about 25 years ago in a mall. And so there was a guy whose faith was not like my faith, and he was next door to me. Now, he prayed to Muhammad every single day. I mean, different times, and he would go to the back, and you could hear him back there. But I will say this about him: he respected my Christian faith. So,
right.
and I thought it was odd because he would actually walk into my business, Christmas, Easter, whatever, and he would say, "Happy Easter to you," and then he would come in and say, "Happy Christmas to you," and it surprised me, because that was right after 9/11. And all those things that happened, in the United States. So I thought, well, you know what? They're just like Christians. Some of them are in it and some are not,
Well,
but
I think that's right.
Respect for Christianity.
Well, and I think there are some militant secular forces that want to undermine and subvert all religious faiths. And that includes the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. And so there's a certain degree of, at a minimum, social and political tolerance that we have to institute in order to live together as people of the book. Mm-hmm. And perhaps your friend is representative of that on just a small scale.
Yeah, we struck up a friendship, but it was just because not everybody is like a category. You can say talk show host are in a particular category, and I hope you don't put me in the bad one. But, but you can actually say that, so there are different categories to everything. And sometimes I think that it is done on purpose to divide us all, whatever country you live in.
Sure.
Morocco. And the whole thing is about division, conquer and divide.
Right.
But I have found, some particular folks who said that they believe this particular way is not necessarily true, but a lot of it is true. So you start to get out there and research and find out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Anything else you got on this trip to Morocco?
Well, it was just a refreshing experience to meet with people who are interested in similar subjects, but from all over the world. When we we went on an excursion the last day, and the tour guide said, "Well, where's everybody? Where's your group from?" And we couldn't answer. It's like, everywhere. These guys right here sitting to my left are from Japan. Everyone else is from mostly European countries, but we had some people from the United States there as well, but also people from Australia and people from all parts of Asia, a lot of South Americans. I hung out with a guy that was running for Congress in Chile right now, and he's an economist, and saw all my Guatemalan friends. I have many friends from Guatemala and my experiences there, and got to see them. I'm teaching a class at the Universidad Francisco Marroquín in March, and so I got to see the people who are helping me start up that class and build the syllabus and recruit the students, and that was fun too. So yeah, it was just a great experience to meet with people you've befriended over many years in many different countries, and to be in one place with them that's sort of unique to your own experience was refreshing.
And what's fun is when you reconnect with them, it's like you haven't lost any time and space.
That's how I feel. I feel as if, I feel as if most of my closest friends don't live in Auburn where I live. I go to Auburn and I go through the routines, and then the next week or the week after, I go to wherever I'm going to see the people that are actually the ones who are closest to me. It's sort of a funny, disorienting world that I work in. But
oh, absolutely. One more question, then we have to go into a commercial break. And
okay.
I'm telling you, this is pertaining to the different classes. Like we have the rich and we have the poor. We have the middle class here, which is shrinking. So are there different classes of people such as the rich, poor, and middle class there?
Yeah, there are, for sure. And I think the gap between rich and poor in Morocco is much wider than the gap in the United States. We have a vastly larger middle class in the United States. Even though, as you say, it is shrinking, it is still a larger middle class. And of course, quality of life and goods and services is much higher for our middle class than for its middle class. I think someone who enjoys regular old middle class lifestyle in the United States is enjoying riches and wealth in Morocco. Just little things you take for granted, like what you can and can't drink, what you can and can't get when you go to the store. We can get all that stuff. I mean, even in France, when you go through Charles de Gaulle Airport, if you've got a headache, you can't find a shop that sells Advil or Tylenol. They just don't do it. That's just not something you'll find in a French airport. And things like that, we take for granted all the time. Doesn't matter what airport you're in the United States, you can go get Advil if you got a headache.
Absolutely. One more question before we go into a break. How do they view President Trump there?
Well, that wasn't a conversation I got into with many of the locals, so I can't really give you a very accurate description of that. It wasn't a topic that was just on the table. I didn't speak to many locals about political or sensitive matters like that. I was mostly trying to learn about sort of more ordinary, everyday experience. So I don't really know the answer to that. That is not something that I brought up.
Yeah, they apparently don't watch our news here. Okay, let's go ahead and into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody hang in there. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Because of your overwhelming support, our 1488 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard MyPillow is only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. we are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge television talk show, where truth matters. We try to be as truthful as we possibly can. Sometimes, Alan can twist my arm and it hurts just a little bit. You want to let it out a little bit, Alan? No, actually, Alan's a good friend. I've been on the show for many years, and always good to be with you, Alan, and follow your trips and follow all of your successes. Wow, I've seen you just really grow.
Well, we've been doing this for, I don't know, it's almost a decade. It will be a decade next year. And I used to recognize the face I saw on the other side of the screen. Now I'm looking at it and thinking, wow, look at how much older I look than I used to look.
You look like a kid to me. You were what, 10
goodness.
when we started? 10 when you started, huh?
Yeah, I'm 20 now, right? Yeah, I'm just still waiting for that to be able to buy a beer.
Absolutely. I've seen in this area in South Carolina, I've seen a huge flood of young people who are really interested in politics now. And from what I've seen, I would say 99% of the kids I'm seeing anybody younger than 60 is a kid to me, but anybody that I've talked to, they seem to be more on the conservative side.
I see this too. I think conservatism is becoming cool again. I mean, how attractive is it really to have men dressing up as women and men playing in women's sports? I mean, is that really going to be that's not something that's going to be cool. That's just, and increasingly I find that the left is becoming, this is going to sound kind of odd, but it's becoming a solidarity group for social misfits. When you look at the protesters who are outside on these streets in DC, and you think, they clearly have undergone self-mutilation, and they dress in ways that are excessively provocative, and the things they say when they protest are just horrifyingly vulgar, and they promote violence and killing and rape. And I think, what this is odd. This is just really almost mentally ill type behavior, and yet they're all finding solidarity in this group, and I think they're feeding off each other and making this dysfunctional behavior, this very antisocial behavior, even more prevalent among their type of crowds. But that's not cool. It's not attractive. It's not it's not constructive. It's nothing that people can build a society around. When you're trying to build civilization and you're trying to build civil society, you can't just be tearing down. You can't just be about destruction. You have to be about building stuff, and it has to be stuff that's meant to last. It has to have staying power. And that's just not what these people are offering. They're just offering nothing but destruction for destruction's sake. And you can't build around that.
No, you can't. And it feels dark, and it's so negative. People are looking for a light, and probably part of the humor of joining the dark side like that, a lot of those folks are aching for attention. They're having some issues, maybe at home or, family life or something like that, because everybody wants to belong to a group. Not everybody wants to belong to a good team. And I don't know, sometimes I know that I have done some research on, people who kill, and they get this high from getting attention, however they can get it, and they're getting it from killing people. And so
that's awful.
Side to all of that.
And I do think there's a growing social malady associated with isolation and alienation and loneliness. I think that, ironically, as the internet has made it easier for us to connect with each other, we've also forgotten how to connect in person, face to face, with that tactile relationship that you might have with somebody that you can't get online. It's different to go meet somebody for dinner and have a conversation with them in front of you, and to give them a hug and to wish them well and to shake their hand, than it is to just pull up Zoom and have a Zoom meeting. It's just different. And there's something lost in the communication. And I think also people are, becoming more maybe socially dysfunctional as they forget how to interact as people in person, and they become almost afraid of it, afraid of that social interaction. It is highly problematic.
Yeah, I think so too. And another thing is, it's so easy to be a bully behind the keyboard. You can do that and tell somebody you don't like their views, and
As an anonymous,
Yeah.
as an anonymous profile online, you people are saying horrible things.
Mhm. Yeah. So I have a friend. I've told you about this guy. Went to school with him, and he is a huge liberal. I mean, huge. And so I think the guy just wants to be told he's loved. So what will happen is every once in a while he gets on my Facebook page and he just rants and talks to me. I thought you were, a very smart lady, and you were, a conservative. I don't understand that. I don't think we can be friends anymore, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't argue back with him, so I just don't argue the point. He has his beliefs, I have mine. I don't see the point. So I'll just say something like, I love you. And it stops him every time I do that. And then he'll say something like, well, we just can't be friends anymore. But he always stays around as a friend. And sometimes I'll type something on there and say, I think you just want me to tell you that I love you. I think that's what you're so that you would have such a rant like that is just beyond my comprehension. Relatives who are liberals. And, really, I'm just like, I can't understand. Did we come from the same gene pool? I mean, I just, you have to ask that. And I think sometimes it's that I get to be the rebel because I want to believe that way, and I'm getting attention.
Yeah, I have a friend like that. She's a psychologist, a therapist, and she and her husband will go to dinner with me every now and then. And she's on the left. I've not figured out what her husband's politics are. He mostly stays quiet, but she'll ask questions because she's genuinely interested in my perspective. And I'll ask her questions too. And, there's a desire there to learn, to seek clarity and understanding rather than just conflict and winning, because she knows that engaging in this direction for a conversation is not going to result in either one of us changing our minds about what we actually believe. Right. But she wants to sort of understand what it is I believe and why it is I believe it, and vice versa. I genuinely want to know why she thinks what she thinks. And her views have become increasingly nuanced as I've known her. This is somebody I've known probably about 6 years, but she's a smart person and a reasonable person and somebody you can converse with about your differences. And that's one sort of skill that we've lost as a society, and one we really ought to regain.
Yeah, I think so too. Another friend, this guy's an herbalist. I mean, he is, all about plants, but he's the biggest. I mean, he just worshipped our previous president, and I mean, just so he was just on and on and on my page, And I don't hijack other people's Facebook pages. I mean, they have their beliefs. I'm not going to hijack his page, and that's what I tell them. So I typed it in there, and I said, I never hijack your page, and I said, let me tell you what you need to be doing. You need to be writing books about herbalism because you got it going on. You need to hold classes because it's a lost art. Most people, even in the farming area we're in, do not know what a seed does. And you do. So that's what you need to do.
Well,
anyway,
I'm glad you brought this up because I did go into one spice store in Morocco, and
oh, tell me, that.
If what the lady there was selling was true, then this is the place where you can go. The one place on earth and find a remedy for absolutely everything. But she was telling me, if you use this spice, you will get rid of tinnitus in the ear, which is my dad has tinnitus, and she's like, well, if you use this, you get rid of that. And then by the time I was done, it's like, wait a second, these people, if all this stuff was true, should be billionaires upon billionaires upon billionaires because they've got a fix for absolutely everything there is. So I'm sure that these marketing ploys are not exactly right. But however, she said, do you want to clear your congestion for 24 hours? And I said, well, yeah, I came from the fall in the United States. It was October. It wasn't 85, 86 degrees, whatever it was in Morocco. And yeah, I feel a little congested. And she rolled a bunch of stuff up into what looked like a sock, and she put it in my right nostril. She said, breathe in hard. And I did. And whoa, like all of a sudden, like my entire head was whoa. And then she put it in the other nostril and breathe. So I did. And it eliminated congestion until about yesterday. I mean, I've never breathed so well. And she said, if you do this, I don't, it was like my whole face was peppermint, but she said, if you do this, you will not snore. Like, what in the world? Okay. So who knows? I didn't end up buying anything, but I did go through about a 45-minute sales pitch because I was just fascinated by the claims.
You should have bought that. I promise you, it had peppermint in it, and it probably had ginger root. Because I have asthma, and ginger root had kept me from having to buy the machine. I do ginger root tea. I do all that stuff. It works.
If I had been carrying cash, I would have come home with something, but I only had card, and that was by design because I did not want to come home with a bunch of stuff from the Moroccan markets. I mean, I did and I didn't, but I knew if I brought cash, I would be, buying these leather wallets and buying a basket with a snake coming out of it, or, I'd be buying all kinds of random stuff. They had a really, really fascinating just boxes, jewelry boxes, and knickknacks here and there. And
do they sell on the street, like jewelry and stuff like that on the street?
They do. They sell it on the street, but they also have these markets which have shops. They're old buildings, and so you can go into the shop, but also they're like wooden roofs that like almost like awnings, and they lean over the dirt walkways, and some are paved, obviously, some are kind of cobblestone, and some are just regular cement, and then some are dirt. And there are people with little stands and barrels, and some are just putting stuff on towels. So you can buy stuff from people who are doing that, or you can dip into a store and look what they've got on the inside. But it's almost overwhelming how much stuff is in there. And you've got all these young guys on mopeds that are just through these 5-foot spaces. And they're so talented that they don't hit anybody. They've been doing this, I guess, every day for who knows how long. And they know how to operate these vehicles in a way that they don't hit people, or so I saw. Who knows? There might be people in Moroccan hospitals every day getting hit by mopeds, and I just don't know about it.
I had a friend who went to, I think it was St. Thomas. And we've been to St. Thomas, and there are street vendors all over the place there. And they claim to have 14 karat gold, 18 karat gold, that kind of thing. And it will even have a mark on it. So this friend said, I want you to look at this necklace I got in St. Thomas. And she said, I only paid $200 for it. And it was a thick chain, $200, which sounded a little bit too good to be true. And she said, but it's stamped 14 karat gold. Well, I didn't have the heart to tell her. I just couldn't. I could tell by looking at it, it was not gold.
Yeah.
And I said, you need to take it to Kay's Jewelers at the mall. This was when I was living in Charlotte. She takes it to the mall, and they gave her the bad news. Do not buy from a street vendor, when you travel. Not even here. Not here.
I did that in China. I loaded up on pearls, which were fine because they had a lot of pearls, and I didn't actually know what I spent, but I just bought a bunch of pearls and came back and thought, I just spent a lot of money. And it turns out I didn't spend a lot of money, but I had also bought what I thought was a gold watch. And I knew it was a knockoff. It was like some kind of, and not gold, but it was, it was a knockoff Rolex, and I knew it was a knockoff, but I thought it was actually made of, some kind of legitimate material. Well, after about 3 months, the gold coloring started coming off, and it was just this silver stuff underneath. Who knows what it was? And then I couldn't even get a battery in the watch to work. And I just thought, I don't know what I paid for the thing, but it was a waste of my money completely.
I did that too. And I knew it was like $10 or something. It didn't cost much. Wearing it one time, I think it started, not even running.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this thing. And I had the Swiss Army knife watch that was a real Swiss Army knife watch, which is not a super nice watch, but it's a fine watch. And I used it for years and years and years. And then the battery died last year. This has happened many times where the battery died and I just got the battery replaced. But this time, the battery could not even be replaced. And so now I'm watchless. I have to get a watch, but I realized I just look at my phone for the time.
Guess what I do? I say I can't wear watches. Watches stop on me. I know it sounds like I'm possessed with demons or something, but they stop working, or they start running really fast and really slow. But my dad was that way, so I took whatever that metabolism is from him. I can't wear a watch.
Huh, that's interesting.
Never have been able to. Yeah, something weird about that. Now, I love antiques and I loved old buildings and that kind of thing. What were the buildings like and how old were they? And what's the oldest building you went to?
Oh, well, it just depended, but most of the buildings are this sort of clay red, pinkish red color, and there aren't many different colorings. That's the way most of the city looks. And from the aerial view, it looks like reddish brown when you're flying out or flying in. I don't know what the oldest building was I saw. I went into a palace that was, something like 12th century, but a lot of the things I saw, I wasn't sure how old they were. And there had been an earthquake in Morocco a couple of years ago that was just devastating. And so all the big historic sites, the big main mosque in the middle of the city was being repaired and had scaffolding, was surrounded by scaffolding. And in the palace I went to, entire sections of it had been completely demolished by this earthquake. And so they were building it essentially from scratch, which was sad. But of course, much of the palace was preserved and was unaffected by the earthquake, but different sections of it were just completely destroyed. So sad thing.
Antique shops? Oh,
there were antique shops everywhere. I don't even know what all I was looking at. There's stuff everywhere. Now, one interesting thing is in Islam, you're not supposed to create these images of people or even animals in the temple. So the decorations were all of flowers and foliage. There were no decorations like in the paintings on the wall. Like if you went into an old monastery or something, you would see depictions of saints with halos, but there are no images of people, no images of animals whatsoever. The ceiling might be designed in such a way that it looked like a boat. So if you looked up, you'd think, oh, that's a boat. And that was what was supposed to be awe-inspiring. And that was interesting.
Well, their artwork is just beyond. I mean, they were so talented with what they had to work with hundreds of years ago.
Oh, and the amount of handcrafted material. I went to this university in the middle of the city, and the woodwork the carpentry was unbelievable, and everything was so minutely designed right down to the smallest details when you came up to the wood carving. And it was just amazing to think how long it must have taken humans to create that. How much dedication.
Wow. Well, Phil and I had a house in Oxford, Alabama, and this house was built in 1885. And I'm just going to tell you, the construction of that house had to have a new roof. That's when the hurricane came through. You remember that? Came through Alabama.
I do.
And actually made it up there where we live in Oxford, Alabama. And so, of course, the roof had to be replaced. And so the guy who was actually redoing that said, did you know that you have 5 layers of roof on this house? And I said, I had no idea. They had never taken any of the layers of roof off. It even had the original wood shingles on it.
Oh, wow. So instead of replacing the roof, just built on top of it each time.
Oh. He said, you got a well-built house to hold up 5 layers of a roof.
Wow.
And I said, when they took the roof off and put the one layer of roof on there, that house had to go. I mean, I've been holding on for decades of all those layers of roof.
I would not have thought about that being a burden on the house, of just being too much weight to hold. I wouldn't even have thought of that. I would have been the guy just building the next layer.
Yeah, and I've heard that. And so I have a friend who's in construction as well. And he said, no, you should never have more than 3 layers of a roof on a house. No more. Especially with the newer constructed houses. The older ones could stand it better than the newer construction.
Wow, I was completely unaware of that. I learned something new every time I'm on the show.
Well, it's not me. It's that I've got great friends who know these things. So that helps to share. So it's a different world. But and then I have a friend from England. And so we were talking, and she said, I said, my house is really old. And she said, yes. And I said, yeah, it was built in 1885. And she said, you call that old? Because in England, like,
Yeah, that's not old. Yeah, that's not old in England. That's right.
House to us. But again, you go with the different customs and what people are used to.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. No, I love the houses in Opelika, which is, of course, I live in Auburn, and Opelika is our sister city. We've got all these old, again, old by our standards, houses. And there's a Victorian Christmas tour that is beautiful. It's one of my favorite things to do every Christmas is walk up and down those streets of Opelika, and the homes are illuminated, and people who live on those streets in historic Opelika dress in their Victorian outfits and have their top hats, and they walk the streets and speak in British accents. It's something. I tell you what, the people who've lived in Opelika a long time really do a tremendous job with that. It's very fun.
I had a store there years ago. It was a Nextel store, cell phone store. And so we were told about that particular place. And so I think it was the first house on the left, the first two houses on the left, these folks actually had, it was like a Gone with the Wind. I don't know where they got the stuff, but there was a replica that looked like Gret and Scarlet. Yeah. And they were doing Christmas, and it was amazing. So in Morocco, do you know how they celebrate? Do they have any kind of a celebration for Christmas, maybe on, their terms?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I didn't ask anybody. So that's a good question. I have no idea, but I sort of, now that you asked me the question, wish I had asked the question to somebody. That would be interesting. I lived in Japan, of course, and there aren't very many Christians in Japan, but everybody celebrates Christmas. But it's more of a, we're going to do Christmas parties, and we're going to do Santa, we're going to do some gift exchanges. It's not a religious holiday over there, but it is nevertheless a holiday that people enjoy celebrating, not to the extent or degree that we do, but it's something that it gives them an excuse to get together socially and have fun and enjoy time with family.
Well, I know people here in the States who own businesses, and they're not Christians, but they love the Christmas holidays. They make a lot of money during that holiday. So
I was in Japan on Christmas, but I can't recall at all what I did that Christmas. What in the world did I do? I don't have any recollection of Christmas Day in Japan. Although I was in Japan on Christmas, I have no idea what I did.
Alan, we're going to have to call it a day. One minute this segment. What would you like to tell everybody before we go?
Well, I would like to say we're filing some shareholder proposals here at Heritage. We obviously have a pretty large investment portfolio, and so we own shares of lots of companies. And stay tuned on that. Keep an eye out in the news for some of the things we're doing. I think that's going to be a really exciting development.
Absolutely. Alan, thank you so much for being with me, as always. Hang around if you've got a few minutes. We'll get you set up for next month.
Okay. I'll probably need... Okay.
And thank you guys so much for watching. You're the apple of my eye. Continue sending email, Donna@donnasedge.com, Donna@donnasedge.com. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. Or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.